She didn't yell when she said it. She said it like it was a rule. You can't move out until you pay me back for raising you. And then she showed me the total. You can't move out until you pay me back for raising you. That's what my mother said on the day I was carrying my boxes to the door. She didn't yell it. She didn't cry. She said it the way someone announces a rule that's always existed, like gravity, like debt, like something inevitable. I was standing in the hallway with a duffel bag over my shoulder and 2 cardboard boxes stacked in my arms. My bedroom behind me looked stripped and hollow, mattress bare, posters down, closet empty. For the first time in my life, the room didn't feel like mine. It felt like storage I'd finally cleared out. She was standing between me and the front door, arms crossed, calm. You can't move out, she repeated. Not until you pay me back. I laughed. I shouldn't have, but I did. Pay you back for what? She tilted her head slightly. For everything. There it was, everything. If you grew up in a house like mine, you know that word. It hangs in the air constantly, undefined, heavy, always implied. I'm 24 years old. I graduated last year. I've been working full-time for 8 months. I've been saving quietly, carefully, in an account she didn't have access to. Because my mother doesn't believe in privacy. She believes in oversight. Growing up, she tracked everything, what I ate, how long I showered, what I spent birthday money on, how much electricity my computer used. She had a notebook in the kitchen drawer labeled House Expenses. I thought it was normal when I was a kid. I thought all parents wrote down how much their child cost. It wasn't until I was 19 and she showed me a page with my name on it that I understood something was wrong. Food $280/month utilities, allocated portion clothing, seasonal estimate, school supplies, room occupancy. She had written that phrase exactly like that. Room occupancy, like I was renting space. When I asked her why she was tracking it, she smiled. So you understand what I've sacrificed. Sacrifice was her favorite word. Sacrifice and ungrateful. When I got my first job at 16, she insisted on managing my paycheck. For your own good. When I turned 18, she told me I could stay at home as long as I respected the rules. The rules were simple. Curfew, no locking doors, share passwords, tell her where I was at all times, and contribute financially. At first it was small, groceries, internet, then it became house contribution, then infrastructure support. Every month the amount increased. Every month she reminded me how generous she was. You're lucky I don't charge market rent, she'd say casually, like that was mercy. By 23, I realized something. I wasn't saving, I was surviving, and every dollar I gave her wasn't contribution, it was reinforcement. So I stopped telling her things. I opened a new bank account at a different branch. I picked up freelance work she didn't know about. I stored cash in a locked case at my office. And I found an apartment. Small. Nothing impressive. But mine. I signed the lease 2 weeks ago. I didn't tell her until yesterday. That was mistake number 1. She stared at me across the kitchen table when I said it. I found a place. She didn't blink. You're not ready. I'm 24. You're not financially stable. I have a job. You don't understand real expenses. I almost smiled at that. I understand them better than you think. She leaned back in her chair. You think rent is just rent? Here we go. You'll fail in 6 months. I won't. You always underestimate what I've done for you. There it was again. The ledger, the invisible bill. I didn't argue. I went to my room and started packing, which brings us back to this morning. Boxes, duffel bag, front door, and her body blocking the exit. You owe me, she said. For what? I repeated. She walked to the kitchen drawer, opened it, pulled out the notebook. The same one, worn at the edges, thick with years of entries. She flipped to a tab marked with my name. My stomach dropped. She had tabbed it. She licked her finger and turned a page. You've lived here 24 years, she said calmly. That's not free. I was a child, and children cost money. She pushed the notebook toward me. Columns, dates, totals. I saw numbers next to phrases like food allocation, utility share, room occupancy, medical expenses, transportation, birthday parties, even emotional strain. I actually blinked at that one. What is emotional strain? I asked. She didn't miss a beat. The stress of raising a difficult child. I felt something cold settle in my chest. "What's the total?" I asked. She turned the page. At the bottom, circled in blue pen, $94,320. I laughed again. It wasn't humor. It was disbelief. "You're serious?" "Yes. You expect me to pay you $94,000. I expect you to acknowledge what you owe." There it was. Not money, acknowledgement, hierarchy. "You can't leave until this is resolved," she said. "I already pay you every month. That's contribution, not repayment." Repayment. Like I'd taken out a loan at birth. "I didn't ask to be born," I said quietly. Her expression sharpened. "That attitude," she said, tapping the page, "is exactly what I mean by emotional strain." I stared at her. This wasn't spontaneous. She'd been preparing this for years. "You think you can just walk out?" she continued. "After everything I've invested?" Invested. That word made my hands tighten around the cardboard box. "I'm not an investment," I said. "You're my responsibility," she snapped, "and responsibilities don't vanish." "I'm not vanishing. You're abandoning." There it was. Abandonment. The ultimate accusation. I shifted the box slightly in my arms. "I'm moving 10 minutes away." "That's not the point." "Then what is?" "The point is you don't get to benefit from my sacrifices and then disappear without settling accounts." Settling accounts. I glanced at the front door. It had never looked so far away. "You can't legally stop me," I said. She smiled. "You live under my roof." And I can make this very uncomfortable." There it was. Not pleading, not emotional, control. "You can't take anything from this house until we agree," she added. "Most of this is mine." It was stored here. Stored, like I was. My pulse was steady now, strangely steady, because something in me had expected this. Not the exact number, not the notebook, but the concept, the idea that leaving would trigger the bill. "You planned this," I said quietly. She didn't deny it. "You always think I overreact," she said. "But I prepare." Prepare? For what? For me to exist independently? She took a step closer to the door. "You are not walking out of here today." And for a brief moment, for just a second, I understood the depth of what she believed. She thought she owned the exit. She thought adulthood required clearance. She thought control didn't expire. But here's what she didn't know. I had prepared too, and she was about to find out. She moved fully in front of the door, not dramatically, not aggressively, just positioned, like furniture. "You're not walking out like this," she said. "Like what? Like you don't owe anything." I set the boxes down slowly. I didn't want my hands full if this turned physical. "You can't physically stop me," I said. Her smile tightened. "Try me." There it was. The shift from financial manipulation to physical control. "You're going to put your hands on me?" I asked evenly. "Don't twist this," she snapped. "I'm protecting my home." Her home, not ours. Never ours. "I'm taking my things," I said. "Everything in this house is technically mine." I almost laughed at that. "You didn't buy my laptop. It was purchased while you lived here. That's not how ownership works." She crossed her arms again. "You think you understand the law because you Googled something?" I didn't answer, because this wasn't about law. It was about power. "Sit down," she said. The command was automatic, reflexive, like I was 14 again. For a split second, my body almost obeyed. That terrified me more than anything. "No," I said. She blinked. "You don't get to say no in my house." "I just did." Silence stretched between us. Then she did something I hadn't expected. She picked up her phone. "If you walk out without settling this," she said, "I'm calling the police and reporting theft." The word landed like a weight. "Theft of what?" "Property acquired under my roof." "You're bluffing." She started dialing. "I don't bluff." I watched her thumb hover over the screen, and in that moment I realized something. She didn't care if it made sense. She cared if it scared me, because she's always relied on fear. Fear of embarrassment, fear of conflict, fear of escalation. She wanted me to back down, to apologize, to negotiate, to say, "Fine, let's talk about it." Instead, I pulled out my own phone. Her eyes flicked down. "What are you doing?" "Calling someone, too." "Who?" "You'll see." I stepped slightly to the side, still calm, still steady. She lowered her phone slowly. You think outside people need to be involved in family matters? This stopped being a family matter when you turned it into a bill. She scoffed. You're overreacting. That phrase again, always minimizing. You're trying to extort me, I said quietly. Her expression sharpened instantly. Don't use that word. Why? Because it's disrespectful. Is it inaccurate? Her jaw tightened. You owe me. There's that word again. She gestured toward the notebook. I fed you. I clothed you. I paid for school. That was your job. No, she snapped. It was a sacrifice. Sacrifice, investment, repayment. Every word she used reduced parenting to transaction. You think other children don't pay their parents back? She demanded. Not like this. You're ungrateful. There it was, the final label, the one she always used when I didn't comply. I'm leaving, I said. I picked up the boxes again. She stepped directly in front of me. You walk through this door without resolving this, and I will make sure you regret it. That was new, not financial, not procedural, personal. How? I asked. I'll tell the family what you're doing. Which is? Abandoning me, after everything. There it was, the real threat, reputation, image, control through narrative. I'll show them the notebook, I said. Her eyes narrowed. You wouldn't. Why not? Because it makes you look petty. No, I replied calmly, it makes you look obsessive. That hit. I saw it. Just for a second, the crack. She didn't care if I left. She cared about how it looked. You think they'll believe you? She asked. I don't need them to. I shifted my weight forward slightly. If you don't move, I will. She stared at me, calculating, trying to determine if I was bluffing. I wasn't. But she didn't know that yet. You'll fail, she said quietly. Maybe. You'll come back. No. Her expression hardened. You always come back. She wasn't talking about leaving the house. She was talking about the dynamic, the cycle, the guilt, the obligation. You need me, she said. There it was. Not money, not repayment, need, dependence. I don't, I said. That was the most dangerous sentence I could have spoken. Because control collapses when need disappears, she stepped even closer to the door. You're not ready. You don't get to decide that. I've always decided. Exactly. And that's when I realized something. She didn't actually believe I would leave. Not fully. She believed this was a negotiation tactic, a rebellion phase. She thought she could wait me out. But here's what she didn't know. The locksmith was already on his way. I checked the time on my phone casually. 5 minutes. Her eyes followed the motion. You checking your bank account? She asked. No. You think you can pay your way out of everything? No, I said quietly. I think I can walk out. She laughed softly. You can't even unlock the door without my permission. I looked at the lock. Old, stiff, worn, symbolic. I won't need your permission, I said. She frowned slightly. What does that mean? Before I could answer, a knock echoed through the house. Firm, professional, 3 sharp taps. Her head snapped toward the sound. My heart didn't race. It steadied. She looked back at me slowly. Who is that? I set the boxes down again. You'll see. Another knock. Locksmith! A voice called from outside. The silence that followed was absolute. And for the first time that morning, she looked uncertain. Locksmith! The voice repeated. Firm, neutral, impatient. My mother didn't move. For the first time since this started, she wasn't speaking. She was calculating. What did you do? She asked quietly. Open the door, I said. Her eyes narrowed. You don't have authority to call anyone to my house. I didn't. She blinked. The knock came again. Sir, you requested service? I walked toward the door. She stepped in front of me again instinctively, but this time there was hesitation. What is this? She demanded. You said I couldn't unlock the door without your permission, I said calmly. You're right. Her face went pale. You wouldn't. I would. Because here's what she didn't know. 3 weeks ago, after I signed my lease, I transferred my remaining personal items to storage. 2 weeks ago, I removed anything she could claim as shared. 1 week ago, I quietly changed the forwarding address on my bank account and tax information. Yesterday, after she reacted the way I knew she would, I called a locksmith, not for this door, for the new one, the one at my apartment. And I scheduled him for this exact time, so that I wouldn't hesitate, so that there would be a witness, so that there would be a timestamp. I opened the door. A middle-aged man in a Navy uniform stood on the porch with a toolbox and a clipboard. "You called about a lock change?" he asked. "Yes," I said. My mother's voice sharpened instantly. "You are not changing my locks." "I'm not," I replied calmly. The locksmith looked between us. "I'm here for 11:30 at Maple Ridge Apartments," he said, checking his paperwork. "That's me," I said. My mother stared at me. "You're leaving now?" she demanded. "Yes." "With strangers involved?" "He's not a stranger," I said. "He's a professional." The locksmith cleared his throat awkwardly. "So, we heading over?" "Yes." I turned back into the hallway, picked up my boxes. My mother moved in front of me again. "You think this makes you strong?" she asked. "No," I said quietly. "It makes me finished." She flinched. That word again. Finished. Not rebellious, not emotional. Done. "You can't just erase 24 years, she said. "I'm not erasing them. You're abandoning me. I'm becoming independent. That's selfish." "No," I said. "It's normal." Her eyes flashed. "You'll regret this. Maybe. You'll fail. Maybe. You'll come crawling back. No." That one landed. She looked at me like she was seeing someone else, like the version of me she controlled had disappeared. "After everything I sacrificed," she whispered. "There it is," I said softly. She stiffened. "You think this is about money?" "It's always been about control." Her jaw tightened. "You don't talk to me like that." "I just did." The locksmith shifted uncomfortably. "Sir," he said gently, "we're on the clock." I nodded. My mother's voice dropped to a whisper. "If you walk out that door without settling what you owe, don't expect to come back." There it was. Exile. The nuclear option. The threat she'd held over me my entire life. And for the first time, it didn't scare me. "Okay," I said. The word stunned her. "Okay," she repeated. "Yes." Silence filled the hallway, because she expected panic, negotiation, tears, not acceptance. "You're choosing this," she said. "No," I replied. "I'm choosing me." I stepped forward. She didn't move fast enough. For a split second, we stood almost shoulder to shoulder. Then she stepped aside. Not dramatically, not defeated, just displaced. I walked through the door. The sunlight hit differently. The air felt lighter. The locksmith held the door open politely. "Everything good?" he asked quietly as we stepped onto the porch. "Yes," I said. Behind me, my mother called out one last time, "You owe me!" The word echoed. Neighbors were outside, watching. I turned slowly. "No," I said clearly, "I don't." And I closed the door. Not slammed, closed. The locksmith loaded my boxes into my car. We drove separately to the apartment complex. He made small talk about traffic, about weather, about standard lock replacements. Normal things. It felt surreal, like my life had split in two. One version trapped in that hallway. One version sitting in a car headed somewhere that was mine. At the apartment, he replaced the deadbolt in under 20 minutes. Brand new keys, fresh metal, crisp click. He handed me 2 copies. "Test it," he said. I slid the key into the lock, turned it, smooth, no resistance. I stepped inside. Empty room, plain walls, cheap carpet, silence. It was the most beautiful thing I'd ever seen. When I walked back out, he was packing his tools. "All set," he said. I paid him, signed the receipt. And when he drove away, I stood there alone, keys in hand, phone buzzing, my mother, 3 missed calls, 2 texts. "You'll regret this. You're ungrateful." I didn't respond. Instead, I blocked her. Right there in the parking lot. My hand didn't shake. My heart didn't race. It felt surgical, precise, like cutting something infected. Because here's the truth. If I had stayed to argue about the notebook, if I had tried to negotiate the imaginary $94,320, I would still be standing in that hallway, explaining myself, defending myself, trying to prove I wasn't a debt. Instead, I hired a locksmith and left before she finished the sentence. The first night in the apartment was quiet in a way that felt unnatural. No footsteps in the hallway outside my room, no cupboard doors opening aggressively, no voice calling my name from across the house, just the hum of the refrigerator and the faint sound of traffic somewhere in the distance. I sat on the floor with my back against the wall and stared at the new lock on the inside of my door. It was such a small thing, a deadbolt, metal and screws, but it represented something my mother never believed in: access control. She believed she had permanent access to me, permanent authority, permanent claim, and in her mind, the only thing that could invalidate that was repayment, as if adulthood required clearing a balance sheet. My phone buzzed again around 9 p.m. unknown number. I let it ring. Voicemail notification a minute later. It was her. "You think you can just cut me off after everything I've done for you?" Pause. "You'll understand one day when you have your own child." Click. That line again. The future guilt. The prediction that I'd circle back and admit she was right. I didn't respond. The next morning, a text came from my aunt. "What happened? Your mom says you stormed out and refused to pay what you owe." There it was. The narrative had already begun. I stared at the message for a long time. I could defend myself. I could send photos of the notebook. I could explain the $94,320. But I realized something important. If I started defending myself, I was still participating in her system, still arguing inside her frame. So I replied with one sentence. "There is no debt for being someone's child." Then I muted the conversation. Over the next few days, the calls slowed. The messages stopped. Not because she understood, not because she apologized, but because escalation requires participation. And I wasn't participating anymore. A week later, I received a text from an unfamiliar number. It was a screenshot. A photo of the notebook page with my name tab visible. Under it, she'd written, "Ungrateful." That was it. No amount, no explanation, just the label. I didn't reply. Instead, I opened a drawer in my new apartment and placed the spare key inside. Not for her, for me. For the version of me that almost stayed. Because that's the part people don't talk about. Leaving isn't one decision. It's 1,000 small ones. It's not arguing about the bill. It's not trying to win. It's not demanding acknowledgement. It's accepting that acknowledgement may never come. 2 weeks after move-out day, she sent one final message. "If you don't resolve this, don't expect to be included in family holidays." The exile again. The conditional love. The price tag on belonging. I stared at it for a long time, and then I blocked that number too. No dramatic final text, no speech, no mic drop, just silence. Permanent, irreversible. Months passed. I furnished the apartment slowly. A used couch, a cheap table, a second-hand bookshelf. Each object I carried inside felt different than anything I'd owned before, because it wasn't stored, it wasn't conditional, it wasn't tracked in a notebook, it was mine. Sometimes I think about that number, $94,320. It was never about money. If I had transferred even a single dollar, it wouldn't have satisfied her, because the transaction wasn't financial, it was symbolic. She wanted acknowledgement that I was a liability she had carried, an investment she deserved dividends on. But children are not liabilities, they're not assets, they're not long-term bonds with interest accumulation. Parenting is not a loan agreement. And adulthood does not require repayment. The last time I saw her was in that hallway, notebook in hand, door blocked, trying to convince me that the exit belonged to her. It didn't. It never did. The locksmith didn't just change a lock that day. He severed the illusion that she controlled access. Access to the house, access to me. And here's the part that surprised me most. The silence after no contact wasn't loud. It wasn't dramatic. It was quiet, ordinary, peaceful. No guilt trips, no monthly contribution reminders, no ledger, just bills with my name on them. That I pay, willingly, because they're mine. She said I couldn't move out until I paid her back for raising me. The locksmith arrived before she finished the sentence. And when I walked through that door, I didn't owe her anything. Not money, not explanation, not obedience. And I never will.